with your hosts, Lisa and Nancy.
Can visiting cemeteries help you trace your family roots? What about understanding the art on the tombstones? We're going to find out how on Big Blend Radio's Third Friday Family History Show today with Miss Holly T. Hansen, the Gen teacher and president of Family-History-Expos. We encourage you to go to our website because that is a wealth of knowledge. All kinds of books, online charts and materials, and even a family history game, a genealogy game. So go to Family-History-Expos.com. So welcome back, Miss Holly. How are you?
Hey, I'm happy. So happy to be here today.
Hey,
Good.
We are happy to have you today. And today, this is airing on Third Friday, as we always do. And we will be on our way out of Santa Fe, New Mexico. But today we're in historic Florence, Colorado. Very rich in history, too. Beautiful historic downtown. And turns out to be the antique capital of the world. So before we get to cemeteries, can antiques help you trace family history?
Yes, I mean we've used personal belongings of people for clues to help us with an idea. I have a pair of gloves that were my grandfather's. My mom gave me that were very old and they were handmade. They have beadwork on them, and his grandmother was. The legend is that she was Native American, and I've taken pictures of them and have been showing them to different people to get an idea of the tribe that maybe she was a part of. I haven't identified it yet, but we use things like that. Silverware.
Interesting.
There are different things that you can trace. The glass,
wow.
Light fixtures. They give. I mean, you've watched Antiques Roadshow.
That's right. Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
They come up with all kinds of family history connections with old pieces. It's kind of interesting.
That's what Nancy and I were seeing as we're traveling on our Love Your Parks tour. You sent us on a really cool mission, family history mission, and Mission Possible story series that we're gathering. And that's kind of what we're seeing, that every time we turn around, everything's connected, this web, But I wanted to tell you, Nancy and I, one of the first days when we got to Greeley, Colorado, our friend Jen Finch, she is with Weld County, the county. She took us on a trip up to the Pawnee National Grassland. Beautiful buttes, beautiful prairie, all kinds of birds and butterflies. It was awesome. But as she was taking us around, it's kind of the grassland is there's some energy being used. They are drilling and doing things, I don't know, but there's energy happening in pieces of the property. So it's kind of spread out in different places. And then there's farms, historic farms and ranches all throughout. And she was talking to us about how people came across on these wagons into this prairie part of the Colorado. And there's snakes and rattlesnakes and everything. There's Rattlesnake Kate. Nancy, remember the story of Rattlesnake Kate?
Yeah.
And how she saved her son and herself by she didn't have a gun, and with a stick off of her fence, killed all these rattlesnakes and took their skins and made it into a dress. But anyway.
It was a cool dress, too.
Wow.
I know.
It's cool, the dress.
It's pretty.
It's kind
pretty.
of like, for the time it was made, it's kind of really modern.
Mm-hmm. That's like,
yeah.
See that.
I'll send you a picture. It's really cool. But there was all these family history. One of them was a Centennial Village. So Colorado's, the Centennial State, but then to the Centennial Village. And they had, preserved, and they've recreated a village with, the blacksmith shop. And, there's like a place where you do all your sawing and woodwork. There's this beautiful estate. And then all these different homes from families were moved into this village. And it's really beautiful. You can go into the homes and you learn about the family. We learned about the Carpenter family, and he was the one responsible for the Colorado River, who got what pieces of water of the Colorado River. And I'm like, we're tied back to Yuma again, So it's really, I just keep thinking back, and Nancy, I just think everywhere we went there was family history. But going back to the grasslands, so Jen took us around. She was telling us just how rough the prairies were because you couldn't really grow anything. And even that region, they do a lot of dry farming, and that's really, really difficult without water. But And they have some of the best water in the world in Greeley, Colorado. But they did learn how to dig ditches and do all these really cool things to become one of the top agricultural communities in the country. But while we were there up on the prairie lands, you could see all these remnants of homesteaders and pioneer families going across, and you just think about how hard it was. But there was this historic cemetery, and I can't even pronounce the name, but it begins with an S. There was a cemetery there, and we got in and went around and looked at all the different tombstones, and they went back way back when. And they also had like irises. People got and planted irises all around the tombs.
Right.
But there were some that had lost their markers, so they just had like a little note on them, which is interesting.
Wow.
You know, it's kind of like, here's my little note of who it is. So it was, you know, when you talk about art, now like cemeteries, when you go around, I never thought about, because sometimes the names are, you can't really read. Sometimes with the elements.
Right. It's true. It's true.
Yeah. So you've got an article that's up right now on nationalparktraveling.com. It's part of our summer fall issue of Parks and Travel magazine. So this really goes into roots travel for sure. But you have this tombstone timeline. I never even thought of it this way. So what it looks like for me is we can actually see by the type of materials they were using what the timeline was if you can't read what's in, you know, inscripted on there.
Right. Right. And in our Cemetery and Sexton Records research guide, we have that timeline in a table, and it has pictures, so you could actually see examples of the different types of tombstones that go with it. You know, as we get going on this, I'd like to bring up cemetery safety. I think,
good.
You know, I've been going to cemeteries for a lot of years, and I'm still learning things. But a couple of experiences that I've had. Get me, I just want to make sure people are safe. You just don't think about what could happen. Number one thing is to be prepared to avoid critters and criminals. And every historic graveyard is different. In sparsely populated areas, like once I was in Gem, Kansas, and I stepped out of the car. We had a group. We were teaching them how to search a cemetery, and as I stepped out of the car, I felt something hit my foot. It was like a sledgehammer. And I looked down, and there was a humongous snake, huge. I screamed, and I jumped 17 feet across two tombstones, you know, headstones, and another lady jumped out of the car with her camera and took pictures. So I have a picture of this glorious snake. It was a bull snake, bull, but it was the biggest snake that I'd seen outside of a zoo.
Wow.
And the gal that was driving, she's like, they're not poisonous. They're, you know, they just, but I checked. I didn't get bit. My skin wasn't broken or anything, but it was scary. And I always wear leather boots now when I go into cemeteries, especially rural cemeteries. But you can avoid rattlesnakes, fire ants. There's all kinds of things like that out there. Spiders.
Wow.
So don't go with your sandals on. Even if it's a hot summer day, go, you know, protected. If you're in an urban cemetery, you might not think about it, but some of our graveyards have turned into havens and places for homeless and drug users. And don't ever go alone. Have someone with you and be safe. Watch your kids if you've got kids with you. I love to take kids. I used to take my kids, and in some cemeteries, you can do rubbings. You can do stone rubbings of the art, which I really enjoy. But be careful that you know the rules, because some of the older headstones, like you said, they're deteriorating. You can't read them. And if you rub and use the wrong materials, you can actually cause damage to the stone. So those are things that you need to be aware of. But I used to take my girls when they were little, when I would read a cemetery, and they would go find their favorite pictures and rub them and have fun little. They just did pictures, which I might be rubbing information. I always like to take my camera and a mirror or something, as you can reflect light so you can get your best picture on the tombstone. Because sometimes you take a picture and it's just you can't get that light and dark that you need, but using a mirror you can reflect so you can get a better picture. Another thing to be careful of, especially historic ones, is do not walk across the graves. You know, when I was a kid, my mom taught me that was respectful not to walk across them, but
Right.
Old cemeteries, wooden coffins can disintegrate over time, and your weight can cause a cave-in. One of my
creepy.
friends had somebody read a stone for her in England, and when he went into the cemetery, that happened to him. And it scared him so bad, you know, because he fell in and then he got wet. Yeah, whether it was water or what it was, but the ground caved in, and he jumped out of there and ran. And he said, "Sorry, you got to get someone else to read that for you." But things like that can happen. So be cautious. Wow. Here in the West, we don't see that quite so often because we don't have that old. Well, I guess if it's a wet place or things can sub through. But tombstones can be heavy, especially some of the big monument ones, and if they begin to shift, if the earth has moved. There was a story of a tombstone tipping over and landing on a child, and the child died. And so those are just things. Be careful. But I want to get that over with early because there's more fun than worry in cemeteries. And, but just be mindful and.
Good point.
I've just pulled up the photo of the cemetery we're in, and it's Sligo Cemetery, Sligo. And one that we saw in Wilcox, we went into this historic cemetery, and we saw a snake come out of the tomb. I think I sent you that one of our very first conversations. Yeah. And I'm looking at these, the photos, and some of them are like they are sinking in. The actual plot,
you can see,
it's got like a wooden box around the plot, and they're sinking, like what you're saying. And it's really interesting. Some of we're going to have to publish this for everybody to see because it's interesting to see. It's got all types of stones, and then they just have like the little plaque markers where no one's there. So that's the one in near Greeley in Colorado. But the other one that we went to was in Picacho, California State Recreation Area. It's just up the river, or just really up the road from Yuma, but and it's a beautiful park right on the Colorado River. And so now we're going to have to do a whole cemetery feature. See how this happens? Because we're finding so much on the road. But in Picacho, they have a cemetery inside the park. And on the cemetery, it tells you, well, we had to move the cemetery because of the rising of the Colorado River. And they have some people
can you
that
imagine?
I know. So what happens when they move things? That's weird to me. I know they have that kind of issue in Louisiana too, but they moved the cemetery, and it's called the Picacho Cemetery. The original site for the Picacho Cemetery was east of here by the river, near the Picacho Town Jail. There you go. You said criminals. And then in 1936, when the waters of the Colorado began to rise behind the newly completed Imperial Dam, the Picacho Cemetery is moved to its present location. Many of the graves remain unidentified, but the following residents of Old Picacho are buried here. So they give a list, which is really cool for people. And a lot of them look like an open Bible, the Tombstone-Art, which I want to talk to you about. But there's one guy. There's a private from World War I, Thomas Rochester, who was buried there. And he was in World War I. And then this other guy, Felicidario Varela Parra, he was 1840 to 1909. His wife was Teresa Rivera, and his son was Julian. He was the discoverer of Mesquite Placer gold diggings in April 1876, the last of the gold bonanzas in the Southwest. It's located at present day in Glamis, and it's dedicated by his great-grandchildren. So that he has a flat tomb thing, and people are putting pennies on his tombstone. Is that a normal thing to have money, or do you think they did that on purpose? Like maybe it's the family.
I've seen. I think there's a lot of family tradition involved in that. Just
okay. Kind of family tradition.
There are cemeteries that people leave notes for each other. You go on Memorial Day, and
Oh.
leave flowers, and it's kind of like a family reunion. You run into other family members and you visit. But I have seen, as I've done genealogy, and I have seen baggies with a rock, people leave a note if they're doing genealogy, family history research, that someone that comes to visit that gravesite to contact them. And so, but I don't know about the money. That's a little bit something I haven't actually seen, but I think, in some cultures they take food, right, and leave it on the grave, or if it's a cremation, they take it to wherever, and or sometimes they just have a place of sanctuary or honor for the ancestors, and they take food there. So there are a lot of, I think, we've written a book on it, but I think there's just so many aspects that are cultured and cross cultures as life goes on, that people marry into different cultures and then they come up with their own little traditions, and so it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, in Africa,
as you study them, there's a book that I have that's called Understanding Cemetery Symbols for Historic Graveyards, and it's like the symbol of the bell, the symbol of a Bible, the symbol of a bird, compass and square. And it gives you a little description of what historically, where they come from, of thistle, of shamrock, of oak tree and leaves. It's pretty cool. Some of them are religious symbols, handshakes, hearts.
This is really neat.
So,
yeah, in Kenya, I learned that certain tribes, when they buried their people who have passed, that in the gravesite they put sandals, so the person's sandals, so that they could walk to heaven. That's kind of how they explained it. So it was a big deal to be buried without your sandals. You're in trouble, So there's all kinds of interesting little cultural things that happen. It's really kind of different, when you think from culture to culture. What happens to the body and how the family line. I think it's in Jamaica. There's a shot of rum on the fireplace on the death anniversary of people. They have to have a shot of rum, but they don't really drink it. It kind of sits there on the fireplace mantle for a day for the spirit of the people who have passed to drink it. Things like that. It's real interesting customs and traditions tied to this.
It is interesting.
Well,
there's the altars too.
Have you ever seen the cemetery's grave houses?
Oh, kind of like those tombs, like the big ones.
The tombs that are on top of the ground.
In the South, you'll see it often in the South, more in the upland, Virginia, North Carolina, Tennessee, even Arkansas. Can be in Kentucky, Missouri, whatever. They're primarily called grave houses. They're often seen on a hilltop cemeteries and in rural communities. They give the deceased a better view, and it's simply They just put them on the hilltops, but they're just small. They're little small, not like a mausoleum or a place where there's multiple burials, but they're called grave houses. The Catholic people tend to call them grave houses, while Protestants call them grave shelters. Oh. And if you talk to the Native Americans, they refer to them as spirit houses. And so it's just another, it's just a little small building that it shows reverence, and it's a place of worship kind of for the dead. And the tombstones are around it. They circle it. They're at the sides of it.
In South Africa, a lot of people were buried under the floor of the church.
Yeah, that's weird. It's creepy.
Yeah, and according to how much money you had, the more money you had, the closer to the altar you were buried.
Right.
So when you
Yeah.
walked into those
you see that
churches, it's kind of creepy.
You see that in England too. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
really?
I haven't been there, but I've heard about them. I've seen pictures.
Wow. But I mean, then are they for tearing up the church all the time? Every time somebody dies, they have to go tear up the church. It's kind of odd.
Well,
it's like, okay.
hey, I do want to tell you another grave. The first thing we did when we left Yuma to get on this Southwest road trip, right? We went, and you know this place, Holly. We went to Quartzsite, and we went to the High Jolly Monument, and that's the gravesite for High Jolly, who brought the camels for the army, for the U.S. government. Yeah, so we've seen that, and it's a big pyramid. And I don't know if that's because of Syria and maybe
because of the camels.
Yeah, it's in the middle of the cemetery. Have you been there to the cemetery there?
No, darn.
You need to go.
Wow. After we had that show, I went to and saw the monument for the camels and everything, but I had no idea, and I didn't go there. I wish I had. Next time.
Wow.
Next time. Yeah, because it's in the cemetery. Okay, we've got a big story here now. We have 10,000 family history stories, Thanks, Holly. But it's really cool because he's got his they have like a whole layout of the cemetery. I photographed that, and so they explain how to actually walk around and understand what you're looking at in the cemetery. And then they have a museum with Quartzsite's families. With the founding families, they said to go to the museum, but it was closed because we were there so early in the morning. So there's a bunch happening right now with that we're seeing.
Wow.
So I think this is fascinating with what we're doing.
I had a unique experience this Memorial Day. Last September, we lost a grandchild.
Oh,
and
yes.
My kids live in rural Idaho, and so the baby was buried there in a small little rural community cemetery. We went up for Memorial Day to take flowers and, just pay tribute and consideration to the baby as well as my son and his wife. And when we got there were all these pictures. They had taken the pioneers and the people who were buried there. It was what we call a pioneer cemetery. It was started when the town started, and the community they were on a styrofoam board, the picture of whoever's buried in each grave.
Oh, wow.
Not every single grave in the cemetery, but as many as they could. And they
could find.
So as you walked through that cemetery, there was a picture of that person. It was very cool. I'd not seen that before. Now I've seen cemetery where you walk through and they have somebody that tells you a story about this one or that one when they do different kind of things. And I've seen books that have pictures of people, that are buried in cemeteries, but these were almost life size, and it was was really humbling. You could just feel the spirit of those people. I don't know how to explain the feeling was different. Of course, for me it was an emotional time anyway, but to be there and to see all the pictures of all of the people that were had contributed in some way to that community. It was really, really cool.
That makes it really real.
Yeah, and I know people do that dress up. Like some of the cemeteries, they do those historic cemetery tours, and they dress up like the people, like the pioneers or the founding families of the town, and they dress up and as them, and will tell the story of that person.
I've seen that, and they tell the stories, and I've seen that and participated in some of those, and that is really cool. But this was a little different, and they had, whoever was in charge of it had spent a lot of time and effort and to collect all those photographs and have them blown up and put on.
Wow,
that board.
That's really cool.
That was fun.
The one place we stopped too on this trip, so we went and saw High Jolly. So his is a big pyramid with a camel on top. He's right in the middle of the cemetery. So that's, it's neat because they have it's an actual U.S. marker, and it's all about how we brought the camels in. And he's from Syria. He's part Syrian and part Greek, and he was the first person to bring camels here. Then we went up the road from Quartzsite towards Prescott, and we stopped. We started. You know how we all do the pullover for the historical marker, right? And
Right.
so we found a place in Siloam, and it turned out another grave, and it's a grave monument. But just what you were talking about, how you see the photos. So they have this big. It almost looks like a chimney, at the way it is. They have like the flat tomb with the dates in like metal, some kind of metal, saying the dates that he was, alive and passed on. A big cross in the middle. Then on the actual big thing, it's all rock, like a chimney, and the center of it looks like a giant penny with the guy carved out on it, and the guy's
Wow.
yeah, and his name is Dick Wick Hall, and so they buried him at the site of his home and office. Two blocks east stood the store, post office, and hotel belonging to E.S. Jones, who was a Welsh immigrant from whom the very beginning believed in Dick Wick Hall and the dream he promoted. So while he dreamed, schemed, and turned his Siloam into humorous fiction, Jones, a true entrepreneur, not only ran the general store in the original Glory Hall Hotel, but also built an automotive repair shop. So they have the Jones guy. And this is weird. And eventually a boarding house. So this is really about E.S. Jones. It's a fiction. Dick Wick Hall is a fictional character. And they have it's crazy. It's amazing what you find if you just pull over. So we have photos for that. We're like, we got we saw Hi Jolly, and then we found him. We're like, we've got our family history story, and now we've got way more than that. But anyway, that was just in a day what you see. But then there's also like memorials too, which are interesting. But yeah, when you were talking about Tombstone-Art, so it really seems to go that, like, I'm talking about these big rocks, but these are going to be different because of what's happening in the world at the time, right? What kind of stone or what they're going to use.
Materials, yeah.
Yeah, it's true. In early times, mowing lawns and keeping up with that, it wasn't something that was easy to do. And there was a time when they used to scrape the cemeteries. So if you were in a well-kept cemetery, it was dirt. There was no grass because it was easier to scrape it off than to have
watering in it,
to take care of lawn, And so I remember as a child, we have this little pioneer cemetery here in Croydon. And I remember as a child, there was off in one corner, there's this fence around the whole cemetery, but off in one corner it was just all red dirt, and all the rest of it was covered with weeds. But that family had taken their area of the cemetery and it was scraped. and I don't know that you really see that much anymore because everything's it's grassy, and you don't think about what it might have been like historically. But
when we were in South Africa, there's a town called Pilgrim's Rest, and their cemetery, if you were a criminal, you faced the other way. Like everybody was like all the heads faced one direction. But if you're a criminal, your feet faced the direction that everybody else's head was facing. So it's not exactly upside down. It's just switched around. So I can't remember which direction, but I'm kind of feeling that your head's faced east. So if you're a criminal, then your head faced west. That's weird.
Yes.
But
in
it's
most
interesting.
cemeteries, I think it's kind of that way. It's kind of a religious thing.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
In a lot of the things that I've seen, because facing east, that is Christian. It's a Christian thing.
Oh.
And in Africa, maybe it's not. I don't know, but because that's in the resurrection. We're all taught in Christianity that Christ will come from the east, and so if you're being resurrected and coming forth out of your grave, you're facing the direction that the Savior will come, and so
that's
I think
interesting.
that's the main reason that I'm aware of in Christian cemeteries that they're buried facing east. There are several different kinds of cemeteries. I don't know if you're aware of that. Here in the United States, we have, and other places, but we have a church cemetery, and usually church cemeteries are called a graveyard. And the land's owned by the church, and people are buried there that are members of the church. And if you're not a member, you're usually buried outside the fence. There are public cemeteries owned by the city or the county, and we've all seen those as private cemeteries. A private cemetery is usually owned by a corporation or a group that's come together for a nonprofit reason to do a cemetery. There are military cemeteries. Now, you guys, I haven't heard you talk about visiting any of those yet. As you go along, are you going to be going through Nebraska? Are you going
eventually?
Down lower?
Not right now. No, not right now.
Okay.
Yeah, it won't be for a while.
Do a little Google search for military cemeteries on your track, but these are usually they're put up by the government, and they offer headstones and burial plots for veterans. And you know, we've known about many famous military cemeteries, and the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier back in Washington D.C. And you see all of those headstones are all the
like
same.
Arlington, and then Cabrillo National Monument has a big cemetery
Cabrillo has it
in San Diego, just outside of it as well. There's some, there's the Fort Bowie one that we've been to, and that's
and all the
military,
markers
and
are the same,
Geronimo.
and you look across acres and acres of young soldiers that have been buried. It's a really deep. The feeling in your chest is just so a reverence of sadness of the lives that have been given up in military service. So there are those, and then there are family cemeteries. You see a lot of those in the South. Everybody had their own little cemeteries on the plantation. But there are some of those that are more just kind of depending on where you live. I think there are family cemeteries in the Midwest too. And usually it'll say the family surname on the cemetery,
I think
if they have a.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Just if they have a gate or an arch above the cemetery, it usually on the family cemeteries has a family name on them, and most people that are buried in there are relatives.
Yeah.
The grave thing in the sites in by Cabrillo Monument, as I remember, was pretty much a lawn, and all the gravestones were exactly the same. So it wasn't like when you go to a cemetery and you see this person has that and that person has something a little different. The ones that military one was just they were all white and smaller and like totally laid out like streets almost. It's very So that's a whole different feeling than when you go to a small town cemetery.
Right, it is. They each have their own feeling to them. Then we have what we call mass graves, where after a natural disaster or large scale accidents, and like we have some of the wars of the Native Americans that we have in this country. So there are. We have here in our little pioneer cemetery, we have a mass grave that's mostly Italians, and they worked in a little cement plant that's not too far from here, and there was an explosion. And they couldn't identify them, and so we just know that that's a little mass grave of people who are killed in an accident. It's humbling, you don't even know who's there, but you can feel it. And so there are those kinds of things. Lodges, some of the Odd Fellows or the Masons or the Elks, sometimes they have their own little cemeteries for these fraternal groups. And then we have customary cemeteries, customary or customized. It's kind of like the cemetery here in Croydon. I've talked a lot about it, but it's just such an unusual and different cemetery. But in the 1800s, there was a pioneer that settled here, and he made a deed of trust to the citizens, the community of Croydon, for the burial of the dead. they'd had them buried. There's just a spot, but when the spring runoff would come, it would wash open the graves, and so they moved those few people that were buried up onto the hill, and then he deeded the land, and we all still know about that, and it's still a deed of trust. It's been handed down from generation to generation, and right now the trustee who's over our cemetery lives in the state of Washington and has never lived ever in Croydon, but it's been handed down to watch over and protect it.
Wow.
So it's really unusual. So we're in the process right now trying to get a little corporation together that we can actually have that deed of trust turned over so that the cemetery can be cared for locally, because the guy who's in charge of it is never here. And he's a nice person. It's just that's kind of unusual. And so you see, you know, rather than being owned by a particular family, the corporation, a church group or something like that, it's started by a community or a group of people who wanted to bury people because it was convenient. And depending on how it was set up, if it's a legal entity, and this is just a piece of land that was given as a deed of trust. So it's given to the citizens of Croydon. We're not incorporated. We're not a town. We're just a rural area in the county. And so you can't give it to the community because, so there's always been a trustee who's been responsible to see that it's been taken care of. And so right now here in our little community, we're working on upgrading that and making it so people who actually live here have the authority to take care of it like it needs to be taken care of. So
That's
and
interesting.
those are tricky ones because it's hard to find the records. Where do you find the records of cemeteries?
Yeah, the church.
Have you thought about that?
Yeah, you know, that's the thing too.
Wow.
And we were in Bayou Rapides Cemetery or Rapides Cemetery in central Louisiana.
Yeah.
I think that was our first one
pretty.
of the first stories we did for the family history Mission Possible story for the Love Your Parks tour. And re-listening to that interview with the lady that took us around, you know, she was talking about how they're using dowsing to find graves because you could be walking on you know, a dead body basically. I mean, that sounds terrible, but they were having an issue with that. And they were having an issue because they needed to do upkeep and take care of the stonework because a lot of it, you know, with the moisture, the rain, and just keep it's an actual National Historic Landmark. And so they were raising money to just protect it and to find these graves because that's, you know, your family history is sitting there. And so that's a huge deal. Then Julian, California, up in the mountains where we lived in San Diego mountains, they have the Pioneer Cemetery, and we took a tour of that, and it was really fascinating because the Pioneer Cemetery, they still were also, they said that the graves moved because it's up on a hill. It's the best place to get a view of the historic downtown. But there was like moving graves, and then some like something would move, and so like a marker would be on someone else's plot. So there's a mess there.
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you?
Well, earthquakes for one.
Yeah. We
You know,
have a family plot in the Magnolia Cemetery down in Augusta, Georgia, and it has a wall around it, a little cement wall that has my great-grandfather and his parents and, you know, family members that are buried there. And one time I was there, and there was this tombstone that I'd never seen before. I took a picture of it, and you couldn't read it, and I sent it to a cousin and said, "Who is this? What is this?" No idea. We finally, she talked to the sexton of the cemetery, and it was just one that had sunken for years, and with the moisture, the ground moved and it come back up, and it wasn't even part of our family plot. We, you know, it was so old we don't even know.
Wow.
So I think.
Well,
that's,
I know,
you know, in some of the really old cemeteries, you don't even know where people are buried.
Then
They
when
might have
there was
sexton records that tell, but you don't know where they're at.
when there was earthquakes in Southern California, like around the Pacoima Lutheran Hospital was up on a hill, and the earthquake was pretty bad. This is years and years ago, but after 2 or 3 days, there were bodies in coffins that were coming down from the hills from, like, not cemeteries exactly, but where people like long ago, they just buried people in their backyard, you know? like they didn't go to a cemetery. They just, here's our
Mhm.
family in the backyard kind of thing, and
Mhm.
they were coming down the street. It was kind of
A
gross,
lot of
but
those
it's
you'll never
different.
even know about. Yeah, unless it's
Yeah.
a family tradition or somebody's recorded it. My grandmother had a baby, a stillborn child, and the
Mm.
family tradition is that they buried her in a shoebox under the lilac tree,
Oh my
and
gosh.
that there's no
Wow.
record of her. I mean, they had babies at home then, and there was no death
Mm.
record. There's no record of her. The only record we have is the family has talked about it. So I know there was
Wow.
Wow.
a
Yeah.
female
Wow.
child, and
Mm.
I always
Hmm.
refer to her as Lila because she was buried under the lilac tree, but
Oh
that's my
yeah.
name, and that wasn't given by my grandmother or anything, but
Mm.
that's how I refer to her. Hey, I was just
Oh.
looking in this little book I've got, and it talks
Mhm.
about coins, pebbles, and seashells. And you had mentioned
Oh
coins
wow.
earlier, and
Wow.
often people visit graves. They
Hmm.
leave
I
they
wonder
leave
about that because
items such as
I've
coins,
seen
pebbles, and seashells.
so in the yeah, the Yarrington Cemetery, we saw that too. So it's interesting that Yarrington, Nevada, I saw coins there. I think they were even put into the um like into the tomb. That the coins are put into it or like
I
embedded.
think it
That's
means
the
good
word.
luck. I think
Yeah,
it's
it could
good
be.
Yeah.
luck. It's supposed to symbolize good luck, I think.
Yeah. Well, then sometimes if you know how you find pennies, like that
Mhm.
when you find a penny, it's like one from a past someone who's passed on has dropped you a penny. It's like a message from those who are in a different world there, wherever they are. And so maybe it's maybe the family's doing. I don't know. Maybe he's doing it. Maybe the ghost is coming down and like dropping pennies, or I don't know. To me, it could be that. I know that we know people that put pennies outside their door
Mm.
to
Mhm.
inspire wealth. I don't mind doing
Hmm.
that everywhere we go. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
hmm well,
You,
I know
you see
one
different
of our.
kind of
Go ahead.
things that families put. You see different kind of things that families put out, like sometimes wind chimes, or if
Mhm.
it's a child's grave, you'll see balloons or a toy, or
Hmm.
So there are a lot of, they call them grave decorations.
Oh wow.
People
Okay.
do different things, but pennies, pebbles, and seashells is something that's really
Hmm.
I haven't seen that so much myself, but it's mentioned in this book as a real common practice. So
Oh
It's
okay. Well, go ahead,
our
Nancy.
friend the I was going to say our friend the Commodore who when we were living in Mexico, we met him. He lived next door for a bit, and he had a thing about pennies. And when he passed, there was a couple of days where every time I looked in a closet, there was a penny that wasn't there before, and I'm like, this is kind of, you know, ah, don't like it, but I do like it. But and it's just certain things of there's something about pennies, and it's always the head side up, never the tail side up. It's
Hmm.
and so it's an interesting concept because he used to really he's Irish background, and he really believed in the penny thing. Like that was a
Mhm.
big deal for him.
Mhm.
So it's kind of interesting, and the pennies could have been there before, and you just didn't notice it, but suddenly you do because your mind's in a different place when somebody passes.
Hmm.
yeah, I'll probably start seeing it all the time now that I haven't
Yeah,
paid attention before.
yeah, I know. That's what I mean. All of a sudden, it's like, oh no, penny.
so
Yeah.
so they call them grave goods, and in this book, it's by Tuli Snyder. It's quite interesting, but under studying cemetery symbols. But she's got a picture of it. There's a whole section on grave goods, and it gives you
Oh
different
wow.
ethnic things like, okay, Pantera fans leave booze bottles and guitar picks
Oh,
Oh, cool.
on
Cool.
the grave.
Yeah, for musicians and things like that, because like Jim
wow.
Morrison and all that, they did all kinds of things. People leave like snakes and lizards and frogs because the Peace Frog song, and so there people leave things like that, almost like an altar. that they leave. It's neat. It's neat. So you have a whole bunch
Yeah.
of books on your website, Holly, Family-History-Expos.com. I want people to go check it out. Just type in cemetery, and you'll find all kinds of books in there. But before we go here, we could talk about cemeteries all day long.
Yeah.
They're so interesting.
This is going to have to be a continuing conversation with us. Holly, I want to remind everybody about you've got every third Friday we have our family history segment with Holly and guests, and also Ask the Pros. That's a weekly event that you host, and everyone, if you go to Family-History-Expos.com and sign up for a newsletter, you'll be alerted on this. I mean, just really, again, a wealth of information on how to trace your families. And then it's August 5th through 10th, you have Let Your Light Shine 2019 International Family History Expo. That's going to be pretty cool to do.
Yeah.
You want to tell us about that?
This is our second annual, and we'll have some fun and interesting classes that you can listen to. And we have slideshows that go with those, so you can see images of what we're talking about, and from people from all over the world. It'll be really fun.
Awesome.
Really educational.
So, yeah, very educated. And so it's like 5 days. You can go online, and isn't it that if you register, then you can get the information after the event too? Like if you want to go back, because you have so many different events.
You get access to watch the video over and over again. You can participate live the day that it's happening. You can watch it, and there's no cost. If you get the handout and to be able to watch the class over and over again, you have to pay for your registration. And then it's indefinitely. You can go watch them over and over.
What's the registration fee?
$69 if you sign up right now, and that gets you access to every day, all the classes that are offered each day. The thing is we work, we have family things going on, and if you can't be there, if you're registered, it doesn't matter. You can still go watch it at your leisure after it's over. So you can go back and watch them again. So, and handouts there's quite a bit of information in them, anywhere from 4 to 20 or 30 pages of information to help you with the subject for each class. So if you're registered, you get access to everything. And if you're not, then you can watch it the one time. But after that, then it's...
Yeah, sure. And it's cool because you do an expo, like you have actual booths on your website and everything. So you can stop in and like say hi to the vendors and literally do that. It's really cool. You can have like a little chat with them, and, I love it. I love what you're doing. It's very innovative and it rocks. And I think, all of us are trying to, find out who we are through family history. And also, remember the people in our families, because, when you go back in history, we're talking pioneers and people across countries or around the world, and they really did some hardcore things. And we, we're here because of that. So it's really fascinating when you really dig into it, and then you look at the then and now. Like, it's interesting. Like the Dickwick Hall was actually called DeForest Hall. And he changed his name because he was a newspaper guy in Wickenburg. He was a humorist, kind of like Mark Twain. And he changed his name to Dick Wick Hall because he didn't like his name. But you look at like how he progressed in his family. I was reading his story, and it's, who his family was, and then how he's turned out and what his career path is. It's really fascinating because there's always some kind of tie somewhere. But everyone, again, Family History Expos is the website to go to. Holly's information on cemeteries and Tombstone-Art is up on nationalparktraveling.com. You'll see Holly as our expert there. She's also an expert in our Big Blend Radio and TV magazine. You can see that at blendradioandtv.com. And her article will also be in the summer-fall issue of Parks and Travel magazine, as well as Our Family History Stories, which is just turned into one big cemetery festival. I think it's like, I didn't realize how many cemeteries we were going to, but it's cool. Everyone, we're going to play a song for Holly. Always love to play music on our shows for our guests. And this one isn't necessarily about tombstones, but it's called Carved in Stone. I thought that was appropriate. It is from our friend John Roniger. He wrote our theme song for our Love Your Park story. It's called My Favorite Bridge. But this is Carved in Stone, and you can go see him perform live in New Orleans when you go down there. And you can keep up with him at johnronigermusic.com, and that's Jon. Thanks so much for joining us, Holly.
Yeah, Holly.
Hey, it's great to be here. I look forward to it every time. Cemeteries are ongoing, and we can learn a lot about culture as we study different cemeteries. So I hope we can do it again.
Absolutely. Cool. I think this is just scratching the surface. That sounds terrible when you're talking about cemeteries, but, you know.
Right. No, boy. Here we go.
I know. Here it is, everyone, carved in stone.
Got a little bit of love into your heart. Got a little bit of love into your heart. Well, it's not much, but at least it's a start. Got a little bit of light into your eyes. Come on, got a little bit of light into your eyes. Now just look up and you might see the sky. Oh, if I carved it in stone, could I rest? And if I gave it to you, would you just let me in? 'Cause I need a home. We're lighting a fire in your soul. I'm gonna light a little fire in your soul. You might not know it, it might just make